There was once a king of an ancient city named Ephira. The king was powerful, greedy, and conniving. He was twice sentenced to death by the gods themselves for his offenses, and twice he evaded his fate. In response to being humiliated by a mere mortal, the gods concocted a simple punishment, but this was not the typical torture device of the ages. The king was to be condemned to roll a boulder up a large hill. As he neared the top of the hill, the boulder would slip and roll all the way back down to the start, negating all of his progress. This was to happen again and again and again for all of eternity. Doomed as an eternal victim, the king wept in endless agony and despair. Or did he? In the face of an indifferent or cruel universe, inherently unconquerable and relentlessly futile, it is said the king never yielded. The king's name was Sisyphus. Upon your entrance to the lands between, one thing is abundantly clear. You will fail. The game attempts to establish this fact 3 times before lofty notions of self-grandeur delude the player. You are instantly ambushed by an unbeatable, abhorrent abomination in the form of the grafted scion, an amalgamation of previously slaughtered tarnished. Furthermore, you will hear this message.
You are fated, it seems, to die in obscurity.
You are then greeted by the punishing tree sentinel, an armored warrior with an armored steed that towers over your feeble frame. You aimlessly sprawl your way forward with the guidance of grace to Margit the Fell Omen, a gargantuan foe who chides your flame of ambition. You are attempting to learn to crawl in a world that expects you to run, one of the toughest challenges in the game if fought instantly. Margit sneers at you, waiting for you to drop your arms in resignation. Without much guidance or tips, the game is continually prompting you to speak its language and learn its lessons. It's expecting a comfortability with failure and death that is not only rare in gaming, but rare in the real world. In any monumental change life can bring to an individual, this scenario is undoubtedly analogous. Let's take the escape of college into the working world, for example. Many individuals, myself included, graduated college with a sense of belonging. I have found a niche, gone through the motions, and achieved a path to success. Wrong. After applying to dozens of jobs and seeing that same unrelenting indifference, the previous words rang true.
You are maidenless.
No, not that one. This one.
You are fated, it seems, to die in obscurity.
This is the fate of every tarnished who fails to persevere, but more importantly, any real person who doesn't embrace failure. The skill set of university is partially applicable to the working world, but nothing truly does prepare you for the next step in life. Nothing prepares you like experiencing the real thing for yourself and continually failing. Humility may be the key to thriving in these environments, and Elden Ring attempts to beat that into you repeatedly. You will fail, and that's okay. That's the point. It's genius game design, but even more, a required life lesson. Nature is a chaotic cacophony of death and destruction, but one can see the restorative aspects. Death provides the space for life, even on the genetic level. Iterations through reproduction allow for the continuation of species through changing environments. More visually evocative, perhaps, is the necessity for the burning away of a forest to build a better one. Of course, this is literally the case with nature, but have you considered the way you iterate throughout your own existence? As you discard the parts of yourself that you despise and build new knowledge, skills, character traits, and values, you are going through a process of psychological rebirth. You are a phoenix rising from the ashes of your own
flame of ambition.
There's a reason the Souls series uses fire as not only a source of light and warmth, but also as a symbol of the warfare between change and stagnation. As you face larger and larger challenges in a game, you expose yourself to foes you never could have imagined defeating. Thankfully, the freedom that comes with the open-world nature of Elden Ring changes the typical approach to these barriers. You don't have to choose to do one major task or quit. You can incrementally build up to challenges when you are ready to take them on. exposure therapy is an extremely successful psychological treatment in assisting the overcoming of fears. Of course, if someone is afraid of water, it's maybe not the best idea to involuntarily dunk them into a hurricane-churned ocean full of sharks in the middle of the night. This can have the reverse effect. Instead, one can simply start with going to the beach and eyeing the water from a distance. This can move to standing closer, dipping your toes in the water, and so forth. This incremental approach is one that keeps individuals feeling success, no matter how small. This is crucial, as monumental challenges can be paralyzing, but 100 smaller challenges are achievable. It creates a sense of inertia as you are in a constant movement towards your goals. Elden Ring has this philosophy in spades, as you may develop a fear of Margits after your first encounter. You may take a step back and gather the strength necessary through incremental challenges to return and face your fear of Margit. This philosophy is echoed throughout the entirety of the game, perhaps up until the final boss. There is no difficulty slider to life, and if you are deathly afraid of finding a new job, learning a new skill, losing a loved one, you cannot turn on easy mode. But you can use your own anti-fragility as a human to minimize the most astronomical challenges, building yourself up to be the strongest individual you can be. It's empowering. A fragile object, such as a glass, may be destroyed when it experiences stress. A non-fragile object, such as a plastic cup, may not break as it experiences a level of stress. However, a human is placed in a third category known as anti-fragile. This means as we face reasonable levels of resistance, we actually grow more resilient. A strong biological example of this is our experience with peanuts. Children exposed to peanuts at a younger age are less likely to develop a peanut allergy, which can be quite dangerous later in life. And individuals who face consistent, reasonable challenges tend to portray more psychological resiliency. This echoes the sentiments discovered with incremental exposure therapy. With the world being indifferent to your existence and no easy mode available, Elden Ring takes hold as an analogous real-life challenge waiting to be conquered. Assuming these challenges don't break us, they build us. They build us into better, stronger people. This last year, I achieved a feat I had been aiming at for years. I'm on a competitive Overwatch team, and I managed to hit rank 65 through thousands of hours of effort. The countless hours of study, VOD reviews, practice, and competition all culminated in this moment. The elation from this achievement quickly deflated as pro-level players continued to verbally degrade my inferior skills. I suppose this provides a crossroads psychologically. Do I respond defeated, knowing that they are genuinely exponentially more accomplished and skilled than I am? I know I will never reach their level. Is there even a point to continue, knowing I won't be the best? This extends beyond Overwatch. I'm a musician, and I know I will never produce the best musical piece composed in history. So is there a point in continuing? Maybe I beat Elden Ring, or maybe I even beat it at Rune Level 1, which I'm currently trying. But I haven't no-hit the game. Sure, I can accept failure, but knowing I will never achieve the end goal of being the best, is that enough to make it all pointless? Returning to Sisyphus and his boulder, I would argue that the answer is a resounding no. There is a discovery of meaning on the fine line of leaning on what you have practiced and pushing yourself to the limits of your potential. This is possible at any level of achievement, from complete novice to established veteran. Whether clutching out a high-level competitive game against a better opponent, intently composing my next musical piece, or no-hitting a boss that typically demolishes me, I find time ceasing to exist. In those moments, hours could pass, and I couldn't tell. Even as I write this script, I find myself absorbed in the process, time whizzing silently past my scrambling digits. Why do we play games specifically, though? Why don't we just go do life? Well, games are actually a required part of our own psychological development. Famous Swiss psychologist Jean Piaget famously researched the effect of games on early childhood development. Take a group of kids. They don't know how the world works. They don't understand politics and jobs and taxation and relationships, but they do play games. They make their own microcosms of reality. They might agree to a game of kings and kingdoms, where each faction owns a quarter of the land of the playground, and any foreign invasion will be met with swift destruction. They may agree to a game of tag where the floor is lava, requiring an avoidance of the ground at all costs. With all of these games, these children are socializing, following rules, making rules, compromising, and collaborating. If a kid comes up and throws a rock in the face of a kid that tagged them, their acceptance into the group will dissipate and ostracization begins. It is absolutely imperative that children work on this process of deliberation, collaboration, and iteration for their own socialization and development. So this establishes the necessity of games, but do we need this as teenagers or adults? Maybe we don't need it, but I would argue it's very valuable. Stories allow us to experiment with ideas, if done authentically. As I embarked on the journey of Kratos and Atreus for the first time, I was captivated. I could hardly peek away from the screen for a moment as I desperately awaited the conclusion of the story. But why? Why did it matter where these fictional characters end up? This was essentially a fantasy story of kings and gods, the same that the children play out. It matters because Kratos is the embodiment of an ideal. Of course, stories are open for interpretation, but I see it as a quest to embark with honorable fatherhood despite a tarnished past. It's an attempt at redemption, even if undeserved. And I am genuinely curious to see if he will revert and falter on his path, or burn the part of himself that he desperately wants to let go. These portrayals of heightened reality are thought experiments that we can use to map onto our understanding of the world. There's a reason we identify so fiercely with pixels on a screen and the voice actors that bring them to life. Because they matter. Maybe, if Kratos is able to overcome this past, then I can overcome mine and be the man I aimed to be. But more so than being a passive experience, games allow us to live these ideals, while we falter and give up on our quest, while we renege on our promise to see this experience through, no matter how hard the difficulty, while we become less honorable than the man we are attempting to embody. At times, we are even able to choose our own endings to these stories. These choices may reflect our values and beliefs, or they can be a testing ground to see what a destructive ideology could lead to. But what if we don't identify with the characters per se? Well, then the stories and games allow us to step into the shoes of someone we see nothing in common with, teaching us the empathy of life from another perspective, something that is universally needed in an age of fracture. It is quite possible that the elevation of Elden Ring to the status of cultural zeitgeist is not so complex. It might be as simple as being a fantastical game that enthralls and distracts with gorgeous art direction and flashy characters. I prefer to think ambitiously, however, and see it as a reflection of one of the things that is lacking most in the current age: an invitation to roll the boulder.